Hello, Dream Chasers. Welcome to Achieving Your Dreams on The Simple Truth with Stuart. I'm Stuart, your host, and today we're diving into 7 actionable ways to make your goals attainable. So get ready for a transformative discussion that will empower you to turn your dreams into reality. Now, there's something that as a coach, I work with so many of my clients to help them to achieve their goals. Because ultimately, you all sit down, you sit and you really put out those goals of what you want to do in your life. And ultimately, a goal has a lot of purpose, it has a lot of meaning and drive. And ultimately, when you achieve a certain outcome, a milestone or a goal, you're actually going to start living that life by design. Because generally speaking, it's something that you formulated. You sat down one day and said, this is what I would like to achieve. And then once you've actually achieved it, you can actually reflect back and say, that was by my design. I actually had to put certain actions into place, and I've achieved that particular outcome. And it's not something that happens by default. And by default, what I mean is you just wake up in the morning and you do the actions almost like a robot. You go through your day-to-day activities and suddenly something happens. You receive an annual bonus or something just happens and, oh, great, that was great. Now, that's just by default. It would have happened if you were asleep sometimes. So really, what I'm going to be talking about today is achieving those particular goals. But more importantly, I found for so many people, they set their goals, but they don't achieve it. Now, what I want to share with you today is 7 ways that can help you to make those goals attainable. And why is that so important? Well, as I said, you want to live that life by design, not by default. Now, achieving and attaining goals has been a challenge for so many people. And through my coaching practice, I sit and I use so many different methods to assist my clients into achieving these particular goals. So I'm going to go through 7 ways that you can actually implement. Now, the great thing here is you could choose one of them, or you could choose all 7 of them to help you to achieve your goal. So these are not a stepped process. These you can find the one that actually works for you. Because ultimately, when you get to that point of achieving your goals, you live life in such a different manner. In fact, it becomes a positive manner. So let's get into it. And the very first one that really helps my clients, and as a coach, we sit down, we probably spend a good nearly 2 hours digging into a particular goal. And really what we need to do is we need to make sure that the goal is clear and specific. And it's not just something where, hey, I just want to make a little bit more money, or I want to lose some weight. It's got to be very, very specific and have that clear side of it. You see, for many of us, when we actually say, I would like to make more money in my life, I'd like to lose weight, as those 2 examples. Well, I could come up to you and I could give you 50 cents. Guess what? Your goal has been achieved. Why? Well, you've actually got more money. You now got 50 cents more than you had 10 minutes ago. So you've got to be very specific. When it comes to losing weight, well, I say take off your shoes. Well, there we go. You've just lost weight. If you want to take it to an extreme, let's remove a body part. You've just lost weight. You see, we've got to take it to that specific level. And this is an area where so many of us, we say we want to make more money, we want to lose weight. Well, take it to a specific level. Well, if you want to make more money, how much more money? And when by? And really have a purpose behind it. Don't just say, I want to make 1 million. Because is that something that's attainable for you? Is that something that is just a dream for you? Or is it something that's really true? Well, I would like to make 1 million because I could actually change the lives of not only my family, but I could give into charities. I could actually help the people around me and really start driving a purpose into it. If you wanted to lose weight, well, how much weight do you want to actually lose? So that you can actually have that clear idea, that picture in your head. But why? Why do you want to lose that particular weight? Well, if I lose weight, it's going to help me with my health conditions. And that's going to help me to live maybe a couple of extra years or maybe even an extra decade, spend more time with my family, be more interactive with my family and friends. You see, when we set these goals, so too often we make them very, very broad. We need to make sure that they are clear, they're specific type of goals. So the parts in the goals is really break it down to that specific nature and just ask yourself the reason, why is that goal so important? And that's just going to give you that particular support. So the very first way is making sure that those goals are extremely clear and specific. And I'm sure you've heard of the SMART method, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and a time bound. So you can use that acronym to help you with that particular goal. Now, that's the first way. And really, I would suggest, even if you don't do any other way, really start with that so that you've actually got that clear, concise goal that is really specific to what you're actually wanting to do and why, to give you a purpose. The second, and over the years, I've used this particular technique. However, we do a bit of an alteration to this technique. And this particular technique goes by the name of a visual board. Now, visual boards, when you go into a group workshop and they tell you, when you go into this particular workshop, please make sure that you're bringing some newspapers, some magazines, or bring some pictures of what you would like in your particular life. And I've been into these particular sessions where, hey, I'd like a Ferrari. So I get a picture of a Ferrari and I cut it out and I paste it on this board. And I'd like to have this mansion that overlooks the ocean. So I look for a picture and I cut it out and I put it onto this particular board. And at the end of it, you actually feel this little bit of motivation and this drive because, that is like a dream. I'd love to. This is where I want to be. However, it then moves itself from creating that visual board to just art, where when you look at it, it's just like, oh, that's a nice car. That's a nice house overlooking the ocean. And that's where it stops. And the motivation and drive to actually achieving it starts to fall away because ultimately what happens is we start to overload what we put on that visual board. And ultimately, it just becomes a canvas of images that really starts to lose the connection. So what we've actually been doing is we take this visual board, but what we do is we elevate this visual board. Now, what I mean by elevating this visual board, the visual boards that I've done with a lot of my clients is we have two sides of the visual board. So, yes, we get the pictures of the Ferrari and that house and mansion that overlooks the ocean, but they're not sporadically placed all over the particular board. What we actually do is on the right-hand side, so we cut the board in half. On the right-hand side, we actually look in chronological order. Well, what would I like to achieve first? And I'll start putting them into chronological order. Well, maybe the first one is losing weight, so I can see the body shape. Maybe it's the house, and I'll put the house, and maybe then it's the car. So I'll put them into chronological order. But just by putting them into that chronological order doesn't mean that it's just going to fall into place, because the real power that comes into this particular visual board is what we put on the left-hand side of the board. And that is to the left-hand side of that particular goal. Now, what we actually do on the left-hand side is we actually look at the visualizations of the actions that are required. Now, sometimes it could be words, sometimes it could be pictures, or sometimes it could be a paragraph. So what do I mean by that? So let's have a look at, you've actually got a body shape that you'd actually like to have in your life. Well, what do you need to do? Well, maybe cut out a picture of a gym with all the gym equipment and people actually working in the gym. Have that as the actionable picture. Maybe it could even be a motivational quote that you're wanting to put in there. Or it could be something where you're playing soccer or playing around with the kids. You start putting an action that's going to start to give you that motivation that's going to lead to that particular goal and outcome. So when you actually look at your vision board, it's broken into two sides. It's in chronological order, what you'd like to achieve first, Left-hand side are actions. So there's pictures of actions or environments. There's pictures or words and phrases, and it's all actions. And that's going to lead through to that particular outcome. So when you're actually looking at and you see that fantastic house, what you actually need to do is maybe you need to close more real estate transactions, which will generate that income. So what do we need? Well, there could be actions of you doing closing of actual deals and really get that motivation drive of the action. So taking a visualization board is the second way to help you. However, it's elevating it to include visualizations of actions that you would actually be doing, not just outcomes, because outcomes, well, it just becomes another artwork and it's just going to sit around probably behind your desk and gather dust. So make sure that you've got that visualization board, but it's powered by actions. That's a big key one there. The third one is, and it's really something, it's a third way that you can do it. And you can actually do this almost every single day. And I'd like you to create it as a habit. And it's basically, it's a discipline or a habit to visualize you achieving your goal. So, for instance, let's take the mansion that's overlooking the ocean. Every single morning, you'll actually sit there and say, right, I can imagine myself taking the keys to the house, walking into the house and overlooking the ocean and actually getting that breeze onto my face. And it's a very powerful discipline to put into your daily activities, is seeing yourself in that environment every single day. Why? Well, it actually goes a little bit deeper. It's not actually just to play fun with your brain. In fact, it starts to reprogram your brain. You see, when we look at, and I'm going to use a Ferrari as an example, many of us go, wow, that's a fantastic car that we'd like to drive, but we just can't afford it. Limiting belief suddenly jumps up in front of us. So what we really need to do is we need to look at that car and say, hey, I've actually got the car keys. I can feel driving that particular vehicle. And you do it every single day. What actually happens is your subconscious starts to change its thought process. It doesn't start to think of the negatives. Oh, I can't have it because it's too expensive. It starts going, hey, wait a minute. What can I actually do? What are the actions and opportunities that's going to come in front of my face that I can take that will get me closer to it? So in fact, it's a reprogramming technique of your subconscious mind. So you do that every single day, and it is power. We always say what we manifest in our brains will start to come to life. But the only way you can actually do that is you've got to feel it and you've got to believe it and you really got to start moving in that particular direction. So have a look at those goals. And really, I did this many, many years ago. I could visualize going and driving a cabriolet, roof down on the actual highway. It was one of my dream cars. I actually just wanted that cabriolet, obviously with the hair flowing in the wind. But what actually happened was I wasn't specific enough on the type of vehicle that I wanted. I just wanted that cabriolet. Well, in my life, I've actually owned two cabriolets. And it all started from that manifestation of getting it and that discipline of seeing myself driving on the highway with the roof down, the music blaring, and what little hair I do have flowing in the actual wind. And I actually got to do that twice in my life and actually got to experience and achieve it. You see, that was by design. So the third way is having that daily discipline where you actually start to visualize it internally so that you can break down that limiting belief and really start to live it internally, and your everything just goes in that particular path. It's an absolutely amazing and a powerful, powerful technique that you can do. I can also share that many, many years ago, and it was actually before 2020 when COVID happened, I actually had sat down with a goal to say, I want to become an international trainer and coach. And through that visualization of doing it every single day, I would actually go through that process. Well, guess what I'm doing today? I coach people in over 15 different countries. And it all started through that visualization. So I'm a person. That one there for me is one of the ultimate that I do personally. And it helps me to get through to that place of achieving that life by design. The fourth way that you can do it is to create self-affirmations. Now, one of the big things is people say, oh, self-affirmations, really? Well, you see, when we go through step 3, visualizing it, step 4 is saying it over and over again. Now, this is something that I used to work in conjunction with the third way. The fourth way is these self affirmations. But what I'd actually do with it is I would actually have this talk inside of me. I'm standing in front of 10,000 people and I'm changing their life. I'm standing in front of 10,000 people and I'm changing their life. That was a self affirmation that I've been doing for years and years and years. And I say that in my head over and over again. Before I go into a session, I say, I'm standing in front of 10,000 people and I'm changing their lives. And that starts to give me this positive self talk, the self affirmation. And this is where the power starts to come into it. Because again, it works on that limiting belief. If I suddenly got onto stage and I'm standing in front of 10,000 people to change their life, do you think that I'm going to freeze and hold? No, it's my drive. I've worked my way to that particular point, and I will be ready for that. So the fourth way is the positive talk or the self affirmations. Now, there's another little factor when we start doing these self affirmations, this positive talk, is it also starts to remove the negative talk that we sometimes say, oh, I can't do that. Oh, it's going to be a tough day. Have you ever had this where you wake up in the morning and the first thing you say to yourself is, wow, I'm so tired. And for the rest of the day, guess what? You're tired. Well, I want you to try this. When you wake up in the morning, once you've got that positive self affirmation, wake up in the morning and say, this is going to be a great day. I'm actually going to speak to 10,000 people and I'm going to change their life. And watch the energy change within you and really give you that energy to start moving forward. So the fourth way is that positive talk, that self affirmation. Have something that is short and sweet. Don't have it that's long. Have something that's short and sweet that you can remember it and you say to yourself over and over and over again. Watch the miracles that start to transpire in all of that. So we've got 4, being a clear and specific goal. The second way is that visualization boards, actions through to goals. The third way is that daily discipline where you're actually visualizing yourself that you've actually achieved that goal, getting the keys to the car, to the house, standing on that veranda overlooking the ocean. And that fourth way is that positive self-talk, that self-affirmation. The fifth way now starts to take it a little bit deeper. And the fifth way is really where you start to believe in yourself. And really, it's something where I can do this. You actually start to visualize and believe because a lot of times, yeah, we visualize it, we say the self talk, but however, we still have a little bit of resistance that pulls us back. And when you find that little resistance that starts pulling you back, you need to start believing in it. You start the self-talk, the visualizations, really getting in, because ultimately what it's going to start to do is in our brain, we've got a very, very powerful component of our brain, and it's called the reticular activating system, the RAS, as it's commonly called. And really what that is, it's something that's going to help you to see what's around you. So let me put this into a live example. When I had this visualization, this drive that I wanted to drive in a cabriolet, I started to get into, I could visualize, I could feel myself driving it. When I bought my very first cabriolet, I got into that car and I thought, you know what, this is going to be amazing. Everybody's going to look at me because I'm driving in a cabriolet. Well, guess what? I pulled out, what pulled in front of me was somebody else also in a cabriolet. I got into the highway and I was just seeing cabriolets driving past me. You see, the RAS starts to almost spark a part of your brain that helps you to see what you've been blocking out. So I started seeing cabriolets everywhere, and it was absolutely amazing. The same thing happens when you start to believe and drive inside of yourself of living as a successful person in that particular house. You're going to start seeing more opportunities. It starts opening up your mind, and that RAS really starts to become a tool and a muscle in your brain that's going to help you to make those decisions. Hey, should I call this person? Yes, I will. I'll call this particular person. You're going out on the streets and say, wait, should I stop at this house? Yes, I'll stop at the street. Why? Because I suddenly noticed there were no curtains in the house. which means that they could be moving out or it could be empty. So you're going to start seeing things that you never saw before. So make sure that you're empowering yourself and actually driving it. So the actual fifth way is really going deep, is actually living that experience and actually have it part of you, because you're going to start seeing new opportunities that's actually going to be circling around with you. Now, the sixth way is really a way that we've heard this particular saying over and over again. You're the average of the 5 people that you circle with. And really, the fifth way is making sure that you're circling with people that live in that particular life or achieving that particular outcome in their life. So if you want to become a top producing agent, you want to circle with top producers. You learn from them. But ultimately, you're going to see that, hey, wait a minute, they can do it. I can definitely do it. You're going to see them selling 50 properties in a year, and you're going to go, hey, I can visualize selling 50 properties a year. You're going to get that motivation. You're going to get that drive, and you're going to start to actually move forward. You see, far too often, we circle with individuals that actually become vampires of our future. What they actually start doing is they start sucking the life, they start sucking the dreams away from you. And that is one of the biggest areas where you can actually address almost from today. I'm not saying get rid of your friends, but really, I've had conversations with a lot of my clients where when they're circling with certain individuals, I actually then start to identify them by name, and I say, what do they do? What is the type of talk that they're going about? And generally I hear, oh, this person's always talking about the economy, how the interest rates are far too high, how this is happening, how that's happening. And I find that that is now starting to get absorbed into your system. And ultimately, it's starting to suck the life of you going forward with your actions and activities. Why? Because you start engaging with it. The self-talk starts to come into your head. You start to say, well, no, we can't sell more properties because the interest rate's so high. You start believing in that, and then you remain where you are. So the sixth way is you need to be aware of the people that you circle with, and make sure that you're specific on the people that are actually highly productive, and seeing how you can circle with them, how you can interact with them, how you can join them with mastermind type of sessions, because it's that positive where they say, interest rates high? Well, no, my clients are actually can afford it. I've got most cash buyers. They're always going to find the positive sides, and it's going to make you see a different angle, a positive angle that's going to help you to grow. So make sure that you are starting to look at the people that you actually circle with. Now, I actually had a coaching call with one of my clients, and it was quite funny because he said, well, the person that I circle with that is actually the most negative is my partner. My partner is just such a negative person. So every morning, every evening, on the weekends, it's negative, negative, negative. Does that mean I've actually got to split up? And I said, no. You don't have to actually split up. But what you're actually going to be doing is you're going to be breaking things down into positives and negatives, business and pleasure. So pleasure being your personal side. And ultimately, the conversations, you need to start to redirect them. And ultimately, when you're dealing, especially with a partner that talks a lot about negativity, ask them this question, because this is actually something that will start to invoke. Hey, let's do something today. What do you think is going to be the greatest thing that's going to put happiness into our day? And they always start out with a lot of negativity, but if you're asking them all the time, but putting it into action, you're going to start to move around. You see, a lot of people are in that negative space because they're circling with the individuals in their office. And that's where it's actually coming in. They're taking all that particular workload and they're offloading it onto yourself. So you've actually got to find out and say, right, that's fine. We've got that's happening in the office. Hey, don't speak to them. But let's see if we can do something that makes us feel great to move forward. And we start to identify what is your partner's goals? What are the ways that we can actually work together to start moving forward? In a subway, you become almost a coach to get positivity. So big thing is look at the people that you're circling with. Try and make sure that the actual speech that's coming towards you is positive speech. If you're hearing anything that's negative, find an excuse to walk away, so that you're not part of it. Find something positive. Go through and do your self-affirmations. Even watch certain videos. We've had people where they're not circling with anybody that's at a high producer. Well, there's things called podcasts. There's things called YouTube with videos. You can actually get engrossed, not to spend an entire day, but you could find a certain person, you could follow them, and that will be able to give you that positive circling information that will actually help you and elevate you to go forward. So, sixth one, watch the people that you circle with. Remove yourself from the vampires, as we like to say. I'm not talking about real vampires, just talking about the vampires, because they suck the life out of you. They suck the positivity out of you. Make sure that you're circling with the right people. And then the seventh one, and really, I'm sure, and I've left this one to the last because this is probably the most obvious one out of there. No goal gets achieved without action. That's a simple truth. No goal gets achieved without action. They're just not going to happen by themselves. So the seventh way is you've got to put it into action. I've said this so many times to people. Go and put on those running shoes and just do it. Just wake up in the morning and say, there's the activity that I need to do today. I know that if I do this particular activity, it's going to move me closer to my goal. But you need to do that activity. No goal gets achieved without action. So you've actually got to put that action into place. Now, how do we put that action into place? Well, the seventh way is action with planning. That's what you've actually got to do. You need to make sure that you've planned what are the actions that I need to do today. Have them written down almost as a checklist if you want, but don't set up these big tasks. Set up these actions that can get you closer to your goal. If it does not move you closer to your goal, it goes to the bottom of the list. Always start out with those activities, those actions that's going to move you back closer to your goal, and make sure that you do it. So as a quick little recap on all 7 of the different ways that you can actually go out to make attaining or achieving those goals a little bit easier for you is the first one, make sure that your goals are very clear and specific. Don't have something that's ambiguous and out there. Number 2 is creating that visual board, but make sure that visual board includes the actions that are required in order to achieve that particular goal. The third one is creating that daily discipline where you actually can visualize it in your head and it becomes almost life inside of you. You can visualize the pictures, you can almost taste it, smell it, and all of that type of thing. So make sure that you're doing it as a daily. The fourth one is that positive affirmation. It's that self-talk that you've actually achieved that particular outcome. It's a great way of actually doing that. So that positive affirmation, self-talk that really starts to drive you, hey, I actually can stand in front of 10,000 people and I know I can change their life. There's that positive self-affirmation. The fifth one is you actually need to start believing in the visualizations that you're doing. It's not just seeing a picture, seeing a house. You've actually got to visualize that you're actually in that house and it is yours. You've really got to do that because that is going to start to activate the RAS, the reticular activating system, that really is going to help you to get your mind, your brain to start seeing these opportunities, joining the dots to get you to that particular goal. The sixth is be wary of the people that you circle with. So have a look at the individuals and identify those vampires. Remember to remove them and replace them with the people that have that strong positive talk, that strong life that's becoming a high-producing person, if that's the path that you're wanting to go through. And then 7, you just got to do it. You got to put it into action. But in order to put it into action, just plan those activities, have it as a little schedule so that you know, hey, today, this is what I'm going to do. And those are the actions that you've got to do. You've got to put into action. And as I said at the beginning, you could do one, you could do all. Obviously, if you did all of them, you can see the mass amount of power that you're going to have in your life or control to achieving those particular goals. So go out, have a look at each one of those, see what you can implement from today, and watch how you're going to start living your life by design. Thank you for joining us. Remember, with the right actions, your dreams are within reach. Keep striving and let's make those dreams a reality.